Welcome to the WTR Small-Cap Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Tim Gerdeman, Vice Chair and Co-founder and Chief Marketing Officer of Water Tower Research. In today's podcast episode, I'm being joined by George O'Leary, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Sono Group, OTC ticker symbol SEVCF. Sono is a leading provider of solar integration products for the commercial vehicle and automotive industry. Also joining us is my colleague, Peter Gastreich, Senior Energy and Sustainability Analyst at Water Tower Research. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you for joining today's podcast.
How you doing, Tim? Nice to meet you.
Morning, Tim.
Good morning. So George, to kick things off, since this is your first time joining us on the WTR Small Cap Spotlight podcast, could you please provide our listeners with some details on your professional background, as well as a high-level overview of Sono Group's key products and target markets, please?
Sure. Well, as Tim mentioned, I am the CEO of Sono Group, OTCQB, symbol SEVCF. So my background, I started off with Pete, Mark, and Mitchell early on in my career, so I'm dating myself a little bit before it was KPMG. And then I was Vice President of Operations for Cablevision Industries, ran $125 million worth of business for Cablevision prior to selling to Time Warner. And then when we sold, I started my own cable installation business and grew a business from 5 to 40 million in 4 years, and then sold that business. Traveled the world for 3 years, including spending quite a bit of time in Ireland. Mentioned that being here on St. Paddy's Day. And so then I started my own consulting practice called SKS Consulting. And what's very interesting about SKS Consulting, as it ties into St. Paddy's Day, is my last name, O'Leary in Gaelic, translates to strong are the kings of the sea. And that's where SKS comes from to start with. So I've been working for over 30 years with public and private companies, turnaround expert, turning companies into growth companies, and really turning them into professional organizations, from startup businesses to professional organizations. So that's a little bit about my background. Now, as far as Sono Group, what's very interesting and exciting about Sono Group is we're in the solar business. Obviously, solar is the largest and most inexpensive, I guess, or most affordable renewable energy source. And what Sono Group is converting into is a solar mobility technology business. We used to be an auto manufacturer, and we got out of that business a year ago. And the investor brought me in to come run the business, to convert it into a technology business. And we've got started in 2024 doing that. Very excited about it. And 2025 is going to be a real exciting year for us as well. So
Thanks, George. That was a very helpful introduction. I'm now going to pass it over to Peter Gastreich for additional questions.
Of course. Sounds great.
Thanks, Tim. Also, George, thanks for the introduction. Could we talk a little bit more about your key product offerings and your target markets?
Sure. So what we offer is a full integration system for solar mobility, and it starts with solar panels. We have what's called our proprietary MCU, and what that does is it actually zones the solar energy. So for instance, on a solar bus kit where we'd have 16 solar panels, it actually converts that. The MCU converts it into 8 different zones, so to maximize the efficiency of the solar panels and utilizing the solar energy. So the way I see solar and Sono Group, what we're doing is we bridge the gap of the conventional vehicles of today with the EV market of tomorrow, while the charging stations catch up over the next 20 years. We actually provide an immediate impact on fuel savings, on CO2 emissions, and reducing the carbon footprint. Now, we are not the total solution, but we are an incremental solution with the EV market. But we provide that today versus waiting 20 years to actually catch up to the full integrated EV market.
Okay, thanks, George. Could we also maybe, we have here your key product offerings, talk about your target markets, and could we talk about how you're going to hit those markets in terms of your growth strategy?
So Sono Group is a German-based company based in Munich, Germany. So our team of really experts and technology experts are all based in Munich, Germany. Our current target market is Europe, Germany and the European market. We focus on commercial vehicles and OEMs. So, basically looking to get into their product offering right from the start, right from production, versus the aftermarket. And so that's really our core focus of 2025 is really focusing on the OEM production market. And as far as growth goes, our focus is really on key partnerships. So we're looking at a partnership here in the US that we should be announcing in the next few weeks, where we're going to partner with their product offering in the US, North and South America, with our product offering in Germany and Europe, and really offer the best of product for both. So it's a great way to grow globally without actually incurring a significant amount of startup costs. Working with a company based in the United States can really help with our international and global growth.
Okay, thanks, George. On the products, I'd like to expand a little bit further there, if I may.
Sure.
How should investors think about the proprietary aspects of Sono's products, and what would you see as the competitive advantages there?
So our focus is on buses, trucks and vans, refrigeration units, so refrigeration trailers, and the RV market. Okay, so that's really our target market when I say what our product offerings are, right? Again, short term, our target market is Europe. Midterm, further expansion in North and South America. But really, it's, as I say, bridging the gap from the EV market of tomorrow. So we're looking at conventional buses and trucks, where we're actually having fuel cost savings as well as CO2 emissions reductions. Really, we're looking to reduce the carbon footprint. As you know, globally, there is a mandate to reduce the carbon footprint. Certain markets like EU versus here in the US, it's a little more aggressive or different from a timing perspective. But that really works to our favor in all areas, because really solar is now becoming not just nice to have, but actually people are really starting to recognize that it's something that's needed to bridge that gap, because the EV market is so far out there with the charging station requirements that it's going to take at least 20 years for that to catch up. So solar actually provides an immediate reduction. Like I said, more incremental than a full solution, but immediate reductions of CO2 emissions and the carbon footprint.
Okay, thanks, George. That's great. Now, if we want to sort of shift over to the overall competitive landscape,
Yep.
does Sono have direct competitors in the same types of solar technology, or is it more a matter of other types of technologies that are considered the competition, for example, EV battery or some other technologies?
So that's a really great question. A few things. One, I should mention that Sono has patents, right? So we have, as far as competitive advantage goes, we have 9 granted patents and over 30 pending patents. So that's one of the definite competitive advantages we offer. But solar, as you know, is to some extent a up and coming industry, right? As far as utilization goes, especially on the mobility side in commercial vehicles, which is our focus and attention. So there are some competitors, a few, what I would say European competitors that stand out. But for the most part, it is the way our partnership we're looking in the US, by way of example, it's not a direct competitor offering our total services. It's one of those product offerings, and we're combining because we need to have a partner with that product offering anyway. So the thought process is partner with someone who has a great high standard of providing super quality, which obviously as a German company, that's one of our key technology points, is that we have very high standards of our technology. A matter of fact, as far as that goes, one, from a recent trade show in Italy, we won an innovation award for Sono Group. And then secondly, is we're the only company in Germany that has been certified to do our full installation on buses without having to get each individual bus certified, which that allows us to do an installation for an entire fleet without having to get every single bus certified. So obviously a lot of cost savings there, and implementation savings. And that, again, it speaks to our high quality and high standard of service that we offer. That's definitely a competitive advantage of ours, for sure.
Okay, thanks, George. Now, if we sort of shift over toward customer engagement, what would be your company's process in terms of, or the strategy for reaching out to customers when you have sort of a novel market? Also, could you also maybe share a little bit about your recent conversation with customers and what that could suggest for the demand potential for your products going forward?
Sure. So two things. A lot of our sales efforts go from trade shows, mostly in Europe, as I mentioned. As far as going to North and South America, that'll tie in with our future partnership. But with the trade shows, our focus is on the OEM market, and like I said, getting on the production line versus getting the aftermarket sales. And I think that's really one, we're seeing great traction in that area with some very large OEMs as we move forward in 2025 for sure. And then, really bridging that gap. So whether it's, a diesel bus versus an electric bus, with diesel buses, it's fuel savings as well as CO2 emission reductions. And then on the electric buses, it's really to increase the battery life by charging the ancillary services without having to tie into the battery use. So those are the competitive advantages of solar, for sure. And as solar is there every single day. Some days more than others, but in specific case studies, as far as like inner city, where buses are moving and going and stopping and not really driving long distances, that's where solar is most effective in those large city operations with city buses and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. So, of course, we're going to have to ask a question about the regulatory environment. We're getting past changes in Washington, so may or may not be more clarity there, but would just be sort of curious for Sono. Are there any implications in terms of what's happening in Washington, for your business? And are there any sort of comments you could make? Because, you're not just focused on U.S. market as well. And, maybe you could share a little bit about the regulatory environment and other markets overseas where you're operating.
Well, as I mentioned, one of the nice things about a German business is they're very focused on processes and procedures. And so, as I mentioned, Sono, really, we were the first to get certified as far as our full integration on buses from the German government, which actually ties all the way into the EU as well, because of our high quality standards. So from a regulatory perspective, it's a very regulated industry, solar, and obviously, especially when you're talking about mobility, because that's so critical. So one, we check all the boxes there from a regulatory perspective in Europe. And then in the US, my take on the US and the changes, one is going to be strategic partnerships with US companies so that we don't have to enter that market necessarily. We could tag off of what they currently do from a regulatory perspective. But number two, my thought is, with the current administration, different than the old administration, it's probably going to slow up the transition of EV commercial vehicles, take a little longer to get out there than before, because I don't know that it was realistic either way with the charging station demand versus the needs. But from my perspective, slowing that down just provides more of an opportunity for solar and specifically Sono Group to bridge that gap between the EV market of the future and where we are currently as of today. So if it takes a little longer to get the EV market out there, then it just provides more opportunity for us. And then strategic partnerships from our perspective with US-based companies that already are focused on the regulatory environment in the US. I don't have to really learn from the start, right? We have the EV regulatory market covered. Our partner will have the US, North and South America regulatory position covered. So it really bridges that gap and provides the best of all solutions for all of us as we move forward to grow our business globally.
Okay, thanks, George. That's been a great review of your, strategy and your growth outlook. And of course, we're not going to get there, without the support of good investors, right? That will be critical, obviously. So with that in
Absolutely.
mind, it'd be great if you could share a little bit about your financing and capital strategy and how that will help to support your growth.
Sure. Well, this is what I would tell you. So we have a very, very large investor within the company of Sono Group. They made a major commitment to convert their debt, over 30 million plus of debt, into equity for the company as we look to uplist to NASDAQ. So we've been working very closely with NASDAQ to answer all their questions that they had. We've gone through that review process. So now we just have, basically, there's probably about 10 criteria to meet for the uplisting to NASDAQ capital markets, and we're very close. We have about 2 left to meet, and so as we move forward, we've gotten past the review section. Now it's a matter of meeting all the criteria and then looking to get to NASDAQ in the next month or two, which would be my expectation. It's taken a little longer than I had anticipated. One, we did a reverse back in 2024 at the end of the year. Took a little bit longer than we had anticipated for that. And then the NASDAQ review, obviously things take a little bit longer, but we're really at the final stages and looks like we should be getting to NASDAQ. Now, what's the difference between, we've been on the OTCQB since July of last year. We've done really good things since then. We also have gone from a foreign filer to starting January 1st. Because our management board, myself and my CFO, as well as the supervisory board, we're all based in the US. So we've gone from a foreign filer to a US reporting entity. So we'll now be filing 10Ks and 10Qs, providing more transparency for all the shareholders. I think that's going to be a big plus as well. So between the global partnerships that we're focused on in 2025, a potential NASDAQ uplisting that we're very close to achieving, and the US being a US reporting entity, I think those 3 things are big opportunities for our investors to look to invest in Sono right, now as an opportunity for future growth for sure. Now, by the way, once we get to NASDAQ, my background being with Cablevision Industries and M&A, my last public entity, I was there for 9 years. We had done 7 acquisitions in about 4 years. So from an M&A perspective, once we get to NASDAQ, it creates a great opportunity for us to look to buy other entities, that are larger and utilizing the NASDAQ stock versus on the OTC market, which makes it more difficult to buy entities with the OTC company. So that'll create another great opportunity for our growth. That'll be a benefit to all shareholders as well.
Okay, yeah, we'll be focused on that NASDAQ uplisting in terms of those key signposts. Like, what would be other signposts you might want to leave investors with here?
So I would say, obviously, the NASDAQ uplisting, very, very close, and we expect in the next month or two to get there for sure. Again, that's my expectations, no guarantees, of course, but certainly our new partnerships, our global partnership with a US entity, I think that'll create not only our market opportunity that we currently have in Europe, but also for North and South America. I think that'll be a big growth opportunity for the company in 2025 and beyond. And then our partnerships with the OEM market, getting on the production line versus the aftermarket. I think those are things that are big opportunities of growth. Especially keep an eye on the refrigeration transport and refrigeration trailers. There's a big opportunity for us in that market space as well.
Okay, George, this has been a fantastic conversation. Really appreciated it, but I'm afraid we're starting to run out of time here.
Yeah.
Before I pass back to Tim, would you like to provide any concluding remarks for our listening investors today?
Well, like I said, solar is really the largest and most affordable energy source, renewable energy source out there. So, and really the way I see things is solar bridges that gap between the EV market of the future, which charging stations are going to take at least 20 years to catch up to the demand of the EV market. So we really create a really nice bridge of that gap between now and then. And then even once we get there, obviously the technology, the cost, and everything else, it'll provide great opportunities for increasing battery life for the EV market of tomorrow as well. So it's not only a bridge, but it's also a created future opportunity once the EV market actually gets there. But the longer it takes, the better off for us and our growth opportunities with Sono. So I would say for investors, look to get in now so you have that opportunity for significant growth over the years to come.
Hey, thank you, George. With that, I'll pass back to Tim.
Thank you, George O'Leary, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Sono Group, OTC ticker symbol SEVCF, for what was a very informative discussion this morning. And congratulations in advance of your planned uplisting to NASDAQ, George.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Peter. Great to talk to both of you, and look forward to coming back on and continuing the conversation.
Also, thanks to my equity research colleague, Peter Gastreich, for joining us today.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Tim.
And then last but certainly not least, a special thanks to the producer and editor of the podcast, my WTR colleague, Joe Brunetto. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, as well as visiting www.watertowerresearch.com to stay up to speed on the company's small cap written research reports, podcasts, fireside chats, and conference schedules. We will see you next time for another edition of the WTR Small Cap Spotlight podcast.